the agenda. It is appropriate that we begin by acknowledging that the district of Saanich lies within the territories of the Lohongrin peoples, represented by the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, and the Saanich peoples, represented by the Startlip, Katwin, Sayot, Sekum, and Malahat nations. We are committed to celebrating the rich diversity of people in our community, and we are guided by the principle that embracing diversity enriches the lives of all people. We all share the responsibility for creating an equitable and inclusive community and for addressing discrimination in all its forms. We're about to get into the agenda. I'd like to thank Glenn for coming to the ceremony to receive our 5 new members of uniformed staff. Just before I go to the agenda, did you want to say something about that, Glenn? You were there with me. What was your impression?
Wow, I think it's the only way to describe it.
Yeah.
They are accomplished individuals in their own right. Very athletic. A number of them have won athletic awards throughout their career for abilities, and I think everybody involved in the recruitment process should be congratulated, and I hope they have a long, safe, happy career.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you. And the board was recognised by the leadership staff, so it was a very good thing. And I think it's important that the department realises the support they've got from this amazing board and, of course, from council. Having said that, I'd like to, is there a motion, please, to approve or change the current agenda? Moved by Mary, second by Linda. Those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed. Agenda is approved. Adoption of the minutes. You would have had a chance to see the minutes. Were there any changes or corrections? Hearing none, can we have a motion to receive and approve the minutes? Moved by Shelley, second by Glenn. Those in favour? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. So we're going to correspondence. Item 3. Now, this is an interesting one. It's for the new members of the board. This has been an ongoing piece of Integrated Police Units Regional Governance Council. And you've seen the documents there. There's a meeting being arranged, and this is on today's agenda to collect any thoughts, ideas, concerns, members of the leadership team or the board would like me to be aware of. And I do believe that at this next meeting, I'll have to check, but there's nothing stopping one of our senior staff joining. I remember Gary attended a few of the early meetings. I think you did too, Scott, but I can confirm that. But coming out of today's meeting, is there anything of concern there about the governance, regional governance council model? I should let you know that the regional governance cannot dictate what we do here with our department, but they will have some role to play in how we go about standing up and standing down, changing the regional integrated units. Chief, did you want to say something, please?
We just had a brief meeting with the area chiefs because this dates back to 2014.
Yes.
The working group.
Yes.
And now it's finally, I guess, getting some more organized traction. And there were lots of questions from the chiefs. So I think the chiefs want to meet with Tanya Enger from Police Services, who's been coordinating things. So that's about the extent of what I can offer.
Okay. Thank you very much for the help there.
No problem, sir.
Can I call you David, like my son? Right. Okay. So, board, do we have any thoughts on that? As Chief just said, this is something that came up first of all in 2014. It's the driving force behind it are some of the mayors across the region. I went in there with a big question mark and caution on my head in the early days. But board, do you have any thoughts? Mary, please.
You're muted, Mary.
Mary, could you put your mute off?
Okay, sorry. I just think it's important that there's clarity in terms of the role and scope of responsibilities of this new group versus individual police boards, you know, when it comes to issues around managing human resources and policies with respect to the people who are involved in these integrated teams.
Okay, I'll make sure we get that. That has been fleshed out and discussed. My sense is that it wouldn't, of course, come back to the department in terms of what the regional group could do, but it would have some say in, I believe, the scope, scale and timelines. I don't know about budgets, Chief. Did that come up in any of your conversation? No, so we do need that information, Mary, and I'll look to bring that back to the next board meeting. I believe I can ask the group as well. I mean, I'm there as the chair, but it may be possible if we wanted to have an additional board member or just to be there to hear and listen and witness if we think that's necessary. I'll bring that back as well. Anything else? Okay, so we'll mark it then as received for information with some follow-up on the role and scope of responsibilities of the Regional Governance Council, the RGC. Doesn't it sound formal? Okay, and I'll bring that back to the next board meeting. And I'm wondering if the minutes from this group can be shared with the police boards. I'll ask about that because that would be a good record to have. Scott, what's your plan in terms of your role to go and meet with, was it Tanya?
The area chiefs are going to meet with her.
And will you report back to from your side to the board?
Through her, I'm assuming.
Through her?
Yeah.
Okay.
To all the representatives.
Okay, so let's move on. Next item, provincial policing standards on the promotion of unbiased policing. Now, this came into me and I sent it onto the board, and we're very glad to have that as part of our agenda today. But I'd like to hand that over to the board. Mary, on the HR, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, no, I think the standards are very good. They've been long in the making from the province, and they've done a lot of work on them. I think my issue that I wanted to raise today is how we are going to ensure that we are ready to comply with them. I know there's quite a time frame, but there are responsibilities for the board, and we should have a process by which we are sure that our board is in fact complying with these requirements. And I would think that should be a responsibility of the governance committee, Linda, probably to come back with a plan of how we, or elements of what we plan to do to make sure we're in compliance.
Linda, could you come in on that, please? Yeah.
Yes, there we go. Yes, I actually had that on my list of things for the report on the governance committee and wondered whether that would be a good topic for us to have we do a workshop, as you know, every year. And I thought maybe that should be a topic of our discussion this year, a more detailed discussion of how we're going to deal with this unbiased policing policy. That would be my suggestion.
Very good. So did you want to make a note for that for our agenda, or just we'll wait for you to come back with that?
Right.
Yeah. I'll just throw in here, and Glenn was there as a witness. Chief spoke today, and I have to say, even I was impressed. And I'm always impressed, but I was super impressed with the induction invitation to the staff. And the chief was all over this unbiased policing as a central theme of the type of officers we're recruiting. Chief, just mention that, please, as a hiring part.
Yeah, just we commented on expectations and the people that we're hiring, the rigorous process they have to go through to be hired by the Saanich Police Department. We spoke to some of the feedback from the community when we talk about wanting to be a service provider of choice, and the evidence of that is seen through the public feedback, which we try to keep the board apprised of. And just the point being that that's a reflection of the women and men who are out there serving the community, the feedback we're getting because of the service delivery. Some of that feedback was from a variety of people, including Indigenous members of the community, members of the Black community, and just very, very favorable feedback into the Saanich police officers, how the members of the community have been served, respected, and so on. And just emphasizing to our 5 new recruits sworn in today that they represent the Saanich Police Department. They are our ambassadors. And with respect to equity, diversity, and inclusion, how critical.
What happened? Don't hear you. Anybody else have a problem?
I think they were logged out temporarily, Mary. They'll just give them a minute. They'll be back on, I'm sure. Mr. Chair and board members, just so you know that IT is on its way.
Okay.
Just a comment for the board members one of the new recruits has a black belt, one level of judo, which I think is very similar to what our mayor has. And another one's involved in judo training.
Yeah. I was wondering whether, Paul, perhaps you could send out just a brief summary of the background of our new recruits for those of us who weren't able to be at the swearing in.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Mary. We have, the chief discussed this with me after our last meetings, and what we had determined was, or what he had determined was, he would like to have a brief bio sent out to the board. So I have actually sent the bios to Anita to be shared in the in-camera portion, just because it has their photos and some personal information on it. And so we can get into that a little bit more during the in-camera portion if you want.
Great, good. Thank you very much.
It's either back up on the screen.
Sorry,
It's great.
the audio was off.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Let me go to gallery and get more people in the gallery. The 3 dots, Scott. Go to gallery down, large gallery. Oh, go to the next one below it. Yeah. I start giving it to you. Go ahead. Or together mode. Okay. For some reason, we're not getting the large gallery, and the reason we're in this circumstance is that my mayor's iPad won't pick up the Teams, and I have a dysfunction on my police iPad, so Scott didn't know until the last minute I was coming over to here. So I apologise. But credit to Inspector Douglas for the amazing recruitment today, and this work that we're doing, diversity, of course, begins with who we hire. And it's about hiring the right officers. And Paul, you did an amazing job.
Apparently large.
Yeah, it's not letting us do the large gallery.
Is that what you did?
Yeah.
This is on the Microsoft end. So they access.
We had it before. Sorry, Scott.
Neighbor.
Oh,
We had everybody on there.
wow.
Well, worst case scenario, we can still see that the people are here, we just can't see them.
Yeah, so we can't, we know you're all here. So when I call for votes, we'll have to say, I'll say those in favour, no answer, any opposed, and we'll catch if there's any opposed. That would be an efficient way of catching the vote when we can't see everyone's vote by hand. Okay, let's continue. So provincial standards, promotion of unbiased policing. We've heard from Mary. Linda's going to bring forward something for us to work on as we move through our season, and comments on how effective today's recruitment piece was with the 5 amazing officers. And thank you to Inspector Douglas for all your work on that, of course, and the leadership team and interviews. Should we go to next item, please? New business arising, divisional updates. Anything there, Scott? I'm not seeing anything coming in.
Paul, you are going to speak to something, or will that be in camera?
I'm prepared for a divisional update, Chief, if required, but the in-camera was going to be the bios for the new hires. And then we were going to discuss, I think, in camera, the work safe return to work, where it includes working with the municipality and creating that division of the employers.
Paul, I think the chief was referring to the inspector competition report. Are you going to speak to that in the HR committee portion?
I can, yes. I'm in your hands with where you would like me to address that.
Okay, let's
deal with that in the in-camera.
Okay.
Okay, so then we go to item 6.1 is finance, 6.2 governance, 6.3 stakeholder outreach, 6.4 human resources, etc. Let's come back to finance. Glenn and Linda, please. Glenn, do you have something there on the budget timeline for 2022?
The budget timeline, with what we've been informed that the senior staff are working on, we will end up, the finance committee, that is, will end up seeing a draft of that sometime in the latter part of September, and we'll be able to bring that forward to the October meeting.
Okay, so October meeting. Linda, did you have anything supplemental?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Great work. So October is when we'll start to see that rolling out. Anything on that, Chief, on finance and budget? Okay, next item, governance and strategic planning. Linda, please.
Yes, it's annual time again, so it's our annual requirement. So we'll set up a workshop date. I'll speak to Anita about setting up a date for us to get together, likely on Teams. And we'll do our annual acknowledgement, as we always do, and our board assessment. So we'll do our self-assessment as well. I'd like to do some follow-up on the training for the new board members, so a bit of work to do there. We'll speak about the unbiased policing policy as well, and then do our usual review of policies and goals, procedures, that kind of thing, reviewing the terms of reference for all of the committees, and then any administrative or resource issues. So that's what we have planned for the governance committee for this time of year. Other than that, that's it, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Linda? Okay, thank you, Linda. That's great. Stakeholder outreach, Barwan and Shelley.
I can talk to it if you want. Start
Please.
something. Back in May, early May, I think May 6th, I undertook to draft the terms of reference. So I worked on it and sent it to the board members, Robert, Warren, and Scott, for review and feedback. I got feedback from Robert as well as Linda, and then followed up with a Zoom meeting one-on-one with Linda, because she had prepared another terms of reference a couple of years ago on her own. So we compared the two, and we thought it would be good to blend those two and update and revise terms of reference. So which I sent out on May 31st, but I didn't go to wide distribution, but because I wanted some focused feedback, so I sent it to Linda, Robert, Shelley, and Jacqueline, because they showed some interest in it. So that was end of May. June, July, August, it's been quiet. People have been busy, various things. So there is a draft revised terms of reference that I can resend, so that people can have a fresh look at it, and then we can finalize and move forward with the terms of reference.
Could I suggest then that, Barwan, please do that? And this is a good way for the board to work, which is to have subgroups working on tasks and then bringing it to the full board. So if it goes out again to Shelley and Linda, and we'll have it ready for our next meeting, October the 4th. Does that work for everybody, or do you need more time?
That should be fine, because it's already sent out. I can send it out again.
Yeah, please send it out again.
Yes.
Okay, and then we'll make sure that we get input in there, and the same for the leadership side as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Was that okay, Shelley? Anything else on that? Well, that's all
Yeah.
good.
No, I think just the one thing to add is I think that once we get the terms of reference finalized, it'll be very helpful for us early on, because then we can also look at the community engagement component as it relates to unbiased policing, right? And all of those pieces. And so I think this is just a really good timeline. So I think that we can aim for October. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Since we're talking about outreach, would like to let you know that Scott and I believe Inspector Warren are scheduling to meet our Muslim brothers and sisters in the near future. There's been some unfortunate incidents there of Muslim phobia, and we're meeting with them at the mosque, and the date's been set. We're also trying to schedule so that Victoria Chief of Police Manic and Lisa could join us, but we're not sure those dates work for everybody. But that is underway, and we'll report back on that. But meanwhile, Barwin, you'll send out your piece and we'll have that commented on ready for October the 4th. Going on to our next item, 6.5 BCAPB. Mary, please.
Sorry, you missed 6.4 human resources.
Oh, I apologize. That's because I was making notes down there. Human resources.
Actually, the committee.
Mary, please, and Jacqueline.
Jacqueline's not on the call. She's not able to do this today. But the committee actually hasn't met over the summer. There wasn't any urgent issues, but we will plan to have a meeting before the next board meeting in October to review where we are at. There's a number of things that, as you mentioned, the new recruits, and I know that Inspector Douglas is going to be reporting in camera on several other items. And we also will be wanting to look at the implications of the unbiased policing in terms of, there's a section on that related to people that we'll have a look at as well. But other than that, I'm not aware of any other burning issues. I think we'll get a report on how COVID is impacting from the chief later on as well.
Thank you, Mary. And Mary, I'll just interject there as well. We have that meeting coming up with our police association, I believe. We had to reschedule that.
That's on our in-camera agenda.
That's right. That's right. But I'll just mention it's an excellent thing that the board does meet with the association, and it's not, I understand, a universal practice. I'll just leave that there in the open. Should we go to the next item?
BCAPB, there's a board meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, and I know that our president and a couple of the executive met with Clayton Pecknold recently to follow up in terms of the issues we'd raised around the OPCC when they had that special committee looking at those issues. Still concerned around issues related to delays and getting resolution of cases, and continue to stress for that. I and Charla, our president, have been part of what we call subject matter experts with respect to the recruit training at the JI around the role of oversight and police boards, which is interesting. We originally had suggested that there might be helpful to have someone in person or even a video, but they don't want that. It's purely written. So we provided some materials to them and some possible case studies, and I'm just waiting for final feedback on that.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions for Mary? Okay, thank you for the update. Should we go to the next item?
CAPG, the conference and AGM are coming up. Anita advised me the other day that nobody had, except for myself, had indicated interest in signing up. I do hope that some of the other board members will, because it wouldn't make sense to sign up, because it's a lump sum for only one person. It is just on the 28th and 29th is the actual conference, which runs our time. It's all online from about 8 a.m. to around 2 in the afternoon, and the 30th is the AGM. So I don't know, Anita, if you've heard from anybody else yet or not, but if you could please let Anita know, because I think the deadline for registering is coming up pretty soon. And I would certainly advise that it looks like a very interesting program, and it is a great way of sharing information and what's going on across the country.
Thank you, Mary. Does any member of the board thinking of joining? I'm just looking at my schedule.
Yes, actually, I thought I had already indicated to Anita I was wanting to go. So yes, please, Anita, this is Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Glenn, can you?
Well, right now I've got a conflict on the Wednesday morning and then a conflict on the Tuesday after, or the Thursday afternoon.
There's nothing on Thursday, I don't think that would matter. No,
Oh.
our time. It's basically over by then. There's one little piece. I wouldn't worry about that.
Oh, okay.
So Mary, I will sign up. I'm seeing that my Tuesday has some elements in, but I've got some windows in there. That's also the same time that the South Island Prosperity Partnership Group has their AGM and some other activities going on. And on the 20th, the 29th, there's CRD, but I've got some time in the mornings and afternoon. I will cherry pick the sessions, but I will register.
Great. It's fine for people to come in and out because it's a fixed fee, no matter how many people we register,
Yes.
10 people. So in fact, if someone from the department wants to be able to sign in and watch it too, that's fine.
Anita, would you do me a favor, please? Email Rachel and get her to put me in. Do we need registration numbers, Mary, or we just log in?
There'll be information coming out. Yes, registration. Yeah, as to how.
Okay, so Anita, could you finesse that with Rachel, please?
Yes, no problem.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, and any staff thinking to join, Scott?
I haven't talked to senior officers about it yet.
Okay. All right then, so let's go to old business, although it's not that old, but Deputy Chief Duffy, COVID update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Essentially, the incremental approach that we've taken is continuing. Today being September 7th, as you know, there's an announcement today that I haven't seen yet because of other meetings, but this was the date that Step 4, the Provincial Restart Plan, was supposed to start, should everything have been in line with that. In talking with people like Dr. Vu and other colleagues and partners, it's unlikely that'll happen, but even if it does, we are still committed to taking a slow and incremental approach to our response to the changing trends of the pandemic in our community. As we all know, the Delta strain variant is alive and very well present in our region, as well as the other health regions in the province. And in a recent communication from Dr. Vu, this is expected to continue and potentially get much worse as September moves along. It's, as we all know, very dependent on vaccination rates. And that's why some of the regions in the province, such as the interior, Okanagan region, have updated restrictions in place. Whether or not that happens here is remain to be seen. But as you have probably heard already, the mask mandate for our organization here is present in the lobby foyer area, which is we consider a public area. It is still optional throughout the building once you're in the secure areas. We've maintained our room capacity limits as we've had in Step 2, and we're not looking to move those ahead. And other options like the work from home option that we've had in place for over a year, we're extending just to keep staff who have been able to work productively from that model in place to keep them safe. And we're also revisiting our sick reporting protocols because now that school's going back in session, we want to make sure that all staff are updated in terms of the procedures required should family members be ill or show any kind of symptoms. So all that is coming out in a directive that will be published this week. So yeah, it's a lot of wait and see, but again, we're taking a very cautious and incremental approach to the pandemic.
Thank you, Dean. Any questions, Mary? Microphone. Hi, Mary, microphone.
Yeah, annoying. That's annoying. Sorry. What we anticipate when the vaccine cards come into play, there's been a lot of discussion about whether police are going to have to intervene at these places if people won't show their cards or become obstreperous in doing it, and if we anticipate any role for the Saanich police in this area.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mary. And the leadership team participates in a weekly phone call right now with the provincial chiefs and the police service division, specifically on COVID. And that's a very hot topic right now. And there's no answers that we have from police service division on that. a lot of the enforceable measures, they're still recommending that many of them, if they have no criminal elements in terms of like threats or mischief or any kind of assault or anything like this, they're recommending that bylaw officers and other means are used as an enforceable resources for these things. Now, of course, in smaller municipalities with smaller bylaw sections, that's harder to actually make happen than it is larger cities. But we're again waiting for further direction on the enforceable measures once the government decides on those and the orders come out.
And I guess my other question would be, and we all read about the big 800 or 1,000 person get together at UVic on the weekend. Did Saanich Police have to get involved with that?
Yeah, they were involved, but let's hear from the staff.
I'll maybe ask Deputy Schenk to speak to that from the operations side. Gary?
Chief, I think you might have had to step out. There's an emerging issue right now in the patrol division that he sent me an email on. So okay. We can turn it over to you if you want to speak on that, or I can.
Maybe Stephanie, if you're on I think you're part of the meeting here. I can't see your face, but I can see the icon. Can you just comment on the preparations and what happened up there and where we want to go with this? Actually, she might be busy too.
Yeah, she's on the same matter that Deputy Schenk went on.
Yeah, I'll just tell you essentially, there is preparation that goes in advance of the students coming back to school. Drew Robertson, who's the staff sergeant in patrol from the administration side, had liaised with UVic. And it's a bit of a challenge because from the security side, the security definitely wants police officer presence. And then there's another side that doesn't necessarily want police officer presence up at UVic. The challenge being when you have those number of, and I won't say they're all UVic students because as we understand it, it went out through social media and there were a lot of students that were not part of UVic, but you got a very large number there. And outside of the COVID thing, it can be a difficult crowd to manage. There were things thrown out of windows, as I understand it, I think a TV and something else. One of our officers tried to intervene and have a student stop drinking in public, was told to F off, and then the person pushed the officer, and the officer went to try to arrest them, and then the individual ran. So it was challenging because we only had very few officers there because we're always hoping for cooperation and some semblance of order. Many of the people there were respectful and were good, but there was a number that weren't, causing damage and drunk and disorderly. So the challenge for us is I don't like to see our officers put in a position where they're outnumbered, if you will, if you get some kind of a significant fight or something. We're going to encourage UVic to have a greater security presence and to have more special duty officers, because part of the challenge too is you can't always anticipate these things happening. But I can tell you, dating back to when I was on patrol, there were times at the beginning and the end of the year where there was a certain number of people who were very unruly. I can remember furniture being lit on fire and lots of challenges. So we're going to look at this because we want everyone to be safe. We want it to be a positive experience for the students, but we want to also be able to deal with those who are determined to cause issues. So we're going to have a very careful look at it through Deputy Schenk and Inspector Edwards and everyone else, and work with UVic and UVic security to try to plan as best we can for some of these unfortunate outcomes.
Comments from the board? I have a couple of ideas and suggestions. So, Chief, thank you for that. It was a crowd of about 1,000, and I heard there was an underage drinker there too.
Probably, yeah. Drinkers.
Yeah. What I'd like to do is reach out to you, Vic, as the new president there. There's also Robin, who's our liaison on the Victoria Regional Transit Commission, and the UVic Student Society looks to be wishing to be involved in some of these conversations. So maybe there's a role. I realize this talks to one of our stakeholder groups, and we have the terms of reference coming from Barwan and Shelley. But I think if it would be helpful to have a meeting and include the Student Society as well, and I'll be happy to play a role in that.
It would, and just what's just popped into my head, working with the Student Society and the university, perhaps we could have a large contingent of students who assist,
Yes.
who are volunteering and wear safety vests and try to help keep some semblance of order for the safety of the students and everybody else, and work cooperatively together.
So I think there's a thread there, Chief, and I'll mention this. I just recently led the council in some naloxone training, which we did last week. And I do know from when my sons were on campus, they're no longer there now, so they won't be part of that crowd now, but may have been in the past. There is a responsible group there, and quite a few of the UVic student body have naloxone training to help people, not for themselves, but to help people in distress. So I think there may be a win that we could pull out of this. Maybe you and I could reach out to Robin and we'd talk to staff. Board, is that okay to go ahead in that direction?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And maybe if we set up a meeting at some point with UVic, we could have our outreach group join and maybe some sort of joint meeting and see what solutions they come up with, this ambassador idea. Okay.
Gary, did you want to have any comment? You were tied up when we started the conversation. The question just was about the large gathering at the university.
Yeah, I heard the last part of your comments, Chief, and just before this meeting, I quickly met with Stephanie and Drew. UVic's got a budget for special duty officers, 2 per night each weekend, that extends right through to I believe it's into November.
Yeah.
But we're obviously not anticipating the same kind of problems that we're encountering now when the weather's good and it's back to school. So what I've urged Drew to do, UVic's initial request was for 4 special duty officers for this weekend. I've recommended that we deploy a team of 8 under the direction of an NCO, and that we engage in a very a much more directed, no breaks type of enforcement policy to prevent gathering there in the first place, so that our officers are, creating an environment where the word quickly gets out that the kids don't want to gather here. So a high-profile police presence with a lot of enforcement, 0 tolerance for liquor, and start that early in the evening. And that may result in some displacement, but combined with aggressive messaging from UVic about non-students are not welcome on the grounds. And we would be looking for standing authority from UVic's administration about unwanted guests, and the ability to remove them and order them to leave. And so that's the type of approach that we would be looking to take this weekend, and have this dedicated presence paid for by UVic and then supported by patrol only as necessary, and with the view to really engaging in prevention to the extent possible. Because once we are dealing with a group the size of what we saw this past weekend, really our only recourse would be something like the public safety unit. And that's a large scale call out and activation.
Thank you, Gary.
So has that been shared at all? I gather it will be with the UVic administration on board already, because they'll be paying for the team. Has that been shared in any way with the UVic Student Society?
Probably not as yet. I don't know.
The UVic Student Society, I wouldn't think so. Primarily, our staff, Drew Robertson, Stephanie Edwards, are dealing with the director of campus security,
right,
who would be plugged in directly to UVic management there.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, board, on this one? Then that brings us to the close of 7.1, which brings us to 8, which is adjournment and date of the next meeting, which we've scheduled for October the 5th. Any problems with that date? Seeing none, then let's have that as our next date for our board meeting, October the 5th, which again is a Tuesday, same time. Thank you, Anita, you've logged that. So we'll come out of this meeting and go into our in-camera business, which is item 9, approval of the agenda. Is there any change or addition?
We may need just a minute to make sure that that's not being.
Okay.
Yeah, I just need a minute to stop the recording. Thank you.
Thank you.